Hi there and welcome to this episode where we're going to learn how to create a bullion knot. I'm going to use 3 strands of embroidery floss and I'm going to tie a little knot in the end. And I'm going to start on the left hand side of my first marker point and pull my thread all the way through to the knot. I'm then going to keep hold of the thread and put it back in again at the end of that marker point, keeping a really big loop on top of my fabric. I then bring my needle back up through the same hole as I first created my stitch, and I push my needle halfway through, and then using my left hand I wrap my thread around my needle. Now you want to wrap your thread around a lot. You want a coil of thread that will basically cover that marker point. Once I've got enough, I hold on to the thread with my left hand, pull the needle through with my right, and keep pulling it until that little coil of thread lines up really nicely, and you want them nice and tight together, and then you can put your needle back in again, which finishes that stitch. So I'm going to demonstrate that a couple more times. First of all, pulling my needle through on the left hand side and putting it back in again on the right hand side of the marker point. I keep a nice big loop of thread on top of my fabric, and then I bring my needle back up again through the same hole that I originally made. And then I start wrapping my thread, and you'll wrap more times than you think. The coil of thread needs to be really tight and quite tall to cover that marker point. And then holding onto it with my left hand and pulling the needle through with my right, I keep pulling until that coil of thread is pretty much lined up. I tease it a little bit with my finger just to make sure they're nice and neat, and then I put my needle back in again at the end. So that's the second bullion knot done. So on to the last one, and one of the tricky parts of this stitch is once you have your coil of thread established, you want to hold it in place but not hold it so tight that you can't pull your needle through. And sometimes pulling your needle through that coil of thread can be really tough. So don't be put off if you have to practice this stitch a few times to get that coil of thread lining up nicely. And there we go, that's bullion knot stitch complete.